My husband ridiculed my handmade jewelry business in front of his colleagues at the company holiday party. 6 months later, he was packing his office as I signed the deed to his entire building. Turns out my little craft hobby wasn't so little after all. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The 42nd floor of the Meridian Tower buzzed with holiday party energy, but the executive lounge felt like a stage where careers were made or broken. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, downtown sparkled like scattered rhinestones against the December night sky. Elena Martinez sat quietly in the corner of the lavish corporate gathering, watching her husband Derek command the room with his usual cocktail party charisma. His laugh carried over the gentle hum of expensive conversations and clinking champagne glasses, the same laugh that had grown increasingly patronizing over their 5 years of marriage. The colleagues surrounding him had no idea that the woman he loved to mock for his cute craft business had just closed a deal that would fundamentally alter all their professional lives. The executive lounge was decorated in understated elegance, with soft lighting that caught the metallic threads in the wallpaper and cast a warm glow over the gathering of advertising industry power players. The air was thick with the scent of premium canapés and ambition, punctuated by the soft jazz ensemble playing near the bar and the sound of forced networking laughter. Derek raised his whiskey glass, his platinum cufflinks catching the light as he gestured to his captive audience of vice presidents and creative directors. His smile had that familiar edge of superiority that Elena had learned to recognize over the years. The same smile that appeared whenever anyone asked about her work or showed genuine interest in her business endeavors. "Ladies and gentlemen," Derek announced with theatrical flair, "let me tell you about my wife's adorable little hobby." He turned toward Elena with that practiced gesture of false affection, the one that made her skin crawl while maintaining the perfect facade of marital support. Elena here thinks she's going to revolutionize the fashion industry with her handmade trinkets. The forced chuckles around the group made Elena's jaw tighten, but she maintained her composed expression. 5 years of marriage had taught her how to navigate these public humiliations with grace. If Derek had bothered to read the contracts scattered across her home office desk, he would know that her handmade trinkets had evolved into a multi-million-dollar enterprise with distribution deals across 4 continents. If he had paid attention to anything beyond his own career trajectory, he might have noticed that her craft business had quietly grown into one of the fastest expanding jewelry companies in North America. But Derek never looked beyond the surface of anything that didn't directly benefit his own ambitions. He was too busy climbing the corporate ladder at Fletcher and Associates to notice that his wife had built her own ladder and was already at the top. "Tell them about your little Etsy shop, honey," Derek continued, winking at Jonathan Fletcher, the agency's founder and CEO. "She thinks she's going to compete with real fashion brands." He emphasized the word real with the same tone someone might use to explain basic mathematics to a particularly slow child. Elena caught the eye of Victoria Chen across the room, noting the subtle nod that confirmed everything was proceeding exactly as planned. As the head of corporate real estate for Fletcher and Associates, Victoria had been instrumental in orchestrating today's carefully planned revelation. Not that Derek had ever bothered to wonder why the company's real estate director had become such a close friend to his craft-making wife. The truth was that Victoria wasn't just Elena's business associate, she was her silent partner in the acquisition that had been months in the making. The same acquisition that would make Elena the new owner of the Meridian Tower, along with the advertising agency that employed her dismissive husband. "The secret to a happy marriage," Derek continued, his words slightly slurred as he leaned conspiratorially toward Jonathan Fletcher, "is letting your wife think she's building something important while you handle the real business. Right, honey?" He turned to Elena with that familiar, patronizing smile that had cost him more than he could possibly imagine. Elena took a measured sip of her sparkling water, catching Victoria's subtle signal across the room. The timing of tomorrow's announcement couldn't be more perfect. In less than 18 hours, Derek would discover exactly what kind of empire his craft-weaking wife had been building while he was busy explaining real business to anyone who would listen. Her phone buzzed silently in her clutch, another update from her legal team confirming that all the final paperwork had been processed. The building acquisition was complete, the new management structure was approved, and the press release was ready for distribution. Sometimes the sweetest victories were the ones that required patience, and this moment had been worth every condescending comment she had endured.
As she watched Derek pour himself another whiskey, Elena couldn't help but appreciate the irony that a man who built his career in advertising had failed to notice the biggest brand transformation happening right under his own roof. Tomorrow would change everything. But tonight, she would play her part one final time, the supportive wife with her cute little craft business that could. She saw recognition beginning to dawn in Jonathan Fletcher's eyes as he studied her business card more carefully than Derek ever had. The holographic security strip caught the light, revealing the full corporate structure of Lumina Holdings that Derek had dismissed as unnecessary fancy printing. Her husband was too busy entertaining his colleagues to notice the CEO's growing interest in his wife's supposedly amateur business venture. "You know what's funny?" Derek continued, loosening his tie as the evening wore on. "Last week, Elena tried to give me advice about our advertising budget. Can you imagine?" He gestured broadly with his glass, causing a few drops to splash onto his expensive suit. "She thinks running a craft business qualifies her to understand corporate marketing strategy." Elena set down her water glass carefully. Years of practice keeping her voice steady despite the public humiliation. "I simply suggested that consolidating suppliers might reduce overhead costs while improving quality control," she said quietly. "See what I mean?" Derek interrupted, speaking over her as he often did. "She thinks supply chain management is like ordering beads and wire from craft suppliers. Darling, leave the real business strategy to those of us who understand corporate dynamics." Victoria Chen cleared her throat from across the room, adjusting her designer glasses in a gesture Elena recognized as barely contained frustration. "Actually, Derek," Victoria said carefully, "I've been meaning to discuss some changes in our building management contract with you." "Not now, Victoria," Derek waved his hand dismissively, clearly annoyed at the interruption to his teaching moment. "I'm explaining important concepts about knowing your limitations. Elena here needs to understand that there's a significant difference between selling handmade jewelry and running a real corporation." Jonathan Fletcher shifted uncomfortably in his position near the bar, his eyes moving between Elena's business card and Derek's increasingly animated gestures. Elena could almost see the wheels turning in his head as he began to connect the dots between the name on her card and the massive advertising contracts his agency had been pursuing for months. Derek, emboldened by what he perceived as his audience's attention, continued his lecture. "The thing about small businesses is that they're exactly that, small. No complexity, no real strategy, just simple transactions between individual customers. Right, honey?" Around the room, Elena noticed several executives exchanging knowing looks. They'd all seen the news about Lumina Holdings' recent acquisitions, even if they hadn't yet connected those headlines to Derek's craft-making wife. Tomorrow's revelation would certainly clarify that connection for everyone present. "Did you know," Elena spoke up, her voice carrying the quiet authority she usually reserved for board meetings, "that the handmade jewelry market generated $48 billion in global revenue last year?" Derek laughed with the confidence of someone who believed he understood the world better than anyone in the room. "See what I mean? She reads these little industry blogs and thinks she's a market analyst. Sweetheart, reading about an industry and actually participating in it at a meaningful level are two very different things." "And did you know," Elena continued smoothly, "that custom jewelry and accessories represent a $73 billion market globally, with corporate gifting and branded merchandise accounting for nearly 30% of that revenue?" For the first time that evening, Derek looked slightly uncertain. Perhaps it was her tone, or maybe he finally noticed how intently Jonathan Fletcher was studying her business card. The room had grown quieter, with more people paying attention to the conversation instead of conducting their own networking. Perhaps, Jonathan Fletcher interrupted, reading directly from Elena's card, we should discuss Lumina Holdings' recent expansion into corporate partnerships. I believe our agency has been trying to arrange a meeting with your acquisition team for several weeks. The color began to drain from Derek's face as he processed this information. Lumina Holdings was the company his agency had been courting aggressively, hoping to land what would be their largest account in the firm's history. They were a mysterious corporation that had seemingly appeared overnight, acquiring smaller companies and building a portfolio that now included some of the most innovative brands in multiple industries. "That's impossible," he stammered, looking between Elena and Jonathan with growing confusion. "Elena runs a craft business. She makes jewelry and sells it online. Lumina Holdings is a major corporation." "A major corporation," Elena agreed with a small smile, "that happens to own the largest handmade luxury goods empire in North America, along with the distribution networks, marketing agencies, and now," she paused for effect, "the real estate holdings that include this building." The silence that followed was profound. Derek reached for Elena's business card, really looking at it for the first time in 5 years of marriage. His hands trembled slightly as he read the corporate structure listed in elegant typography below her name. The same structure he had dismissed as pretentious decoration when she had first shown him the cards months ago. But you work from our spare bedroom," he whispered, his confidence evaporating as the implications began to sink in. "I've seen your workspace. It's just a desk and some storage boxes." "That workspace," she replied gently, "is actually my preferred location for video conferences with our international teams. The lighting is excellent for virtual meetings, and the quiet environment helps when I'm negotiating multi-million-dollar contracts." Victoria Chen chose that moment to approach their group, carrying a leather portfolio that Derek should have recognized if he had ever paid attention to his company's legal documents.
Speaking of contracts, Derek, I have some paperwork you'll want to review. It concerns the building's new ownership structure and the resulting changes to Fletcher and Associates' lease agreement. Derek's confusion was evident as he took the documents, his marketing-trained mind struggling to process information that didn't fit his pre-conceived assumptions about his wife's capabilities. New ownership structure? Jonathan, what is she talking about? Jonathan Fletcher had gone pale as he pieced together the evening's revelations. "Derek," he said carefully, "I think your wife has just informed us that she's our new landlord." The portfolio contained the building acquisition documents, showing Lumina Holdings as the new owner of the Meridian Tower. Attached were the new lease terms for Fletcher and Associates, along with a management restructuring plan that would significantly impact Derek's position within the company. Elena watched her husband's face cycle through disbelief, confusion, and finally, a dawning horror as he realized that his cute craft-making wife now controlled both his workplace and his career prospects. The same woman he'd been publicly mocking for years had quietly built an empire that could determine his professional future. "This is impossible," Derek repeated, though his voice lacked conviction. The evidence was literally in his hands, printed on official legal documents that bore both his wife's signature and the corporate seal he'd been seeing in trade publications for months. "Actually," Elena said, standing and smoothing her dress, "it's quite possible when you spend 5 years building something substantial while everyone assumes you're just playing with beads and wire." The party continued around them, but their corner of the room had become a bubble of stunned silence. Other guests were beginning to notice the tension, some discreetly moving closer to overhear the conversation that was clearly more significant than typical holiday party small talk. Derek looked up from the documents, his face a mixture of shock and something that might have been respect for the first time in their marriage. "Elena, how long have you been planning this?"
I wasn't planning anything, she replied honestly. I was simply building a business while you were busy explaining to everyone why it couldn't possibly be successful. The building acquisition was just good strategic positioning for our expansion plans. Victoria stepped forward with another document. There's also the matter of the advertising contract that Lumina Holdings has been considering. Jonathan, your agency submitted a proposal last month for our global marketing campaign. The realization hit Derek like a physical blow. His own company had been desperately trying to win the contract that would make their year, never knowing that the decision maker was the woman he dismissed as a hobby crafter. Every time he'd come home complaining about the mysterious executives at Lumina Holdings who wouldn't return their calls, he'd been talking to his own wife. The irony, Elena observed, is that if you'd ever listened to my suggestions about integrated marketing strategies instead of patting my head and telling me to stick to craft projects, your agency might have had a better chance at winning our business. Jonathan Fletcher looked like he might need a chair. Elena, Mrs. Martinez, Ms. Lumina? I'm not sure how to address you now. Your company's account would represent our largest client relationship in the agency's history. Elena is fine, she said graciously. And yes, it would be a significant partnership. We're looking for an agency that understands both traditional luxury markets and innovative digital strategies. Unfortunately, based on tonight's conversation, I'm not sure Fletcher and Associates quite grasped the complexity of our target demographic. Derek's legs seemed to give out as he sank into a nearby chair, the acquisition documents scattered across his lap. You own my building. You control the contract my company needs to survive, and I've been... Oh God, Elena, what have I done? You've spent 5 years assuming you knew more about business than the person building one. You've dismissed every idea I've shared, mocked every success I've achieved, and never once asked genuine questions about what I was actually doing. The holiday party continued around them, but word was spreading quickly through the room. Elena could see people checking their phones, no doubt looking up Lumina Holdings and discovering that the humble craft maker they'd been introduced to was actually one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the building. "But why didn't you tell me?" Derek asked, his voice barely audible. "I'm your husband. I should have known about all of this." Elena considered his question carefully. "I tried, Derek. Every time I brought up expansion plans, you told me to focus on my little hobby. When I mentioned corporate partnerships, you laughed and said I was getting ahead of myself. When I tried to discuss our financial growth, you patted my hand and suggested I kept better track of my craft supplies budget."
Victoria Chen checked her watch, a gesture that Elena recognized as their prearranged signal. "Elena, the announcement is scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9. You'll want to be at the office early to handle the media requests." "Announcement?" Derek looked between them with growing panic. "The official press release about the building acquisition and our new corporate headquarters," Elena explained. "Lumina Holdings has outgrown our previous facilities. The Meridian Tower will serve as our new base of operations, with several floors converted to accommodate our expanding teams." The implications were sinking in for Derek and Jonathan simultaneously. Not only did Elena now own their building, but she was planning to move her own company's operations into the same space. Derek would be sharing an elevator with his wife's corporate empire every day, a constant reminder of how thoroughly he'd underestimated her.
"What about Fletcher and Associates?" Jonathan asked, his voice tight with concern. "Will our lease be honored under the new ownership?" Elena smiled, but it wasn't entirely reassuring. "That depends on several factors, including your agency's commitment to adapting their client relations approach and their willingness to embrace more collaborative business practices." Derek understood immediately that his wife was offering him a choice: change his attitude and approach to their relationship, or face the professional consequences of his years of dismissive behavior. The same woman he'd been condescending to for half a decade now held his career in her hands. "I need to understand something," Derek said, looking directly at Elena for perhaps the first time that evening. "How big is Lumina Holdings? How much of this did I miss?" Elena exchanged a glance with Victoria before answering. We employ over 8,000 people across 6 countries. Our retail partnerships include major department stores and boutique chains worldwide. The wholesale division supplies corporate clients and luxury brands. And yes, it all started with handmade jewelry sold through an Etsy shop. The room seemed to spin slightly as Derek processed this information. 8,000 employees, 6 countries, major retail partnerships. His wife hadn't just built a successful small business, she created a global empire while he was busy explaining to people why such success was impossible for someone like her. The Meridian Tower acquisition, Victoria added, represents just one aspect of our expansion strategy. We're also acquiring several other properties to support our growing operations. Derek's professional mind, despite his personal shock, couldn't help but appreciate the strategic brilliance of what Elena had accomplished. She'd built not just a company, but a vertically integrated business ecosystem that controlled multiple aspects of her industry. The building acquisition wasn't just about real estate. It was about securing operational control and reducing long-term costs while positioning for further expansion. Elena, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. I owe you several years' worth of apologies. She nodded acknowledgement, but didn't immediately forgive him. Derek, the problem isn't just that you underestimated my business. It's that you never bothered to ask genuine questions about my goals, my challenges, or my successes. You decided what I was capable of and never reconsidered that assessment, even when the evidence suggested you might be wrong. Around them, the holiday party was beginning to wind down, but their conversation had attracted a small audience of colleagues who were no doubt eager to understand the implications of the evening's revelations. Elena noticed several people discreetly taking notes, probably preparing to update their networks about the dramatic shift in local business dynamics. Jonathan Fletcher approached with a mixture of professional concern and personal curiosity. Elena, I hope you'll consider giving Fletcher and Associates an opportunity to prove we can adapt our approach. We've worked with Derek for several years, and while tonight has been illuminating, I believe we can develop a more collaborative relationship moving forward. Elena appreciated his diplomatic approach, but she wasn't ready to make any commitments. Jonathan, that will depend largely on whether your team can demonstrate genuine respect for diverse business perspectives and innovative approaches to client relationships. Tonight's conversation has raised some concerns about your agency's cultural assumptions. The message was clear. Derek's public dismissal of his wife's business acumen reflected poorly not just on him personally, but on the company culture that had enabled and encouraged such attitudes. If Fletcher and Associates wanted to maintain their lease and pursue the Lumina Holdings contract, they would need to prove they could evolve beyond the traditional corporate hierarchies that dismissed unconventional success stories. Derek stood slowly, the acquisition documents still in his hands like evidence of his monumental misjudgment. Elena, what can I do to fix this?
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Not just professionally, but personally. Our marriage, our future together. She looked at him thoughtfully, seeing, perhaps for the first time in years, the man she'd originally fallen in love with. Before success in corporate culture had convinced him that his wife's dreams were automatically smaller than his own ambitions. Derek, you can start by genuinely listening when I talk about my work. You can ask questions that demonstrate real interest rather than polite tolerance. And you can understand that building something meaningful isn't about fitting someone else's definition of success. It's about creating value in ways that matter to you. The evening was ending, but Elena knew the real conversation was just beginning. Tomorrow would bring media attention, business negotiations, and the complex process of integrating her company's operations into their new headquarters. But tonight had accomplished something more important than any acquisition or contract. For the first time in their marriage, Derek was seeing her as she truly was. Not just his wife with a cute hobby, but a business leader who had built something extraordinary through patience, vision, and the kind of strategic thinking he'd never bothered to recognize. As they prepared to leave the party, Victoria handed Elena a final folder.
Tomorrow's schedule, she explained. The press conference is at 9, followed by the building tour for major investors. The Fletcher and Associates meeting is scheduled for Thursday, assuming they're still interested in pursuing our business relationship. Elena nodded, already shifting into CEO mode for the challenges ahead. Building an empire had been the easy part compared to navigating the personal dynamics that tomorrow would bring. But tonight had accomplished something more important than any acquisition or contract. For the first time in their marriage, Derek was seeing her as she truly was. Not just his wife with a cute hobby, but a business leader who had built something extraordinary through patience, vision, and the kind of strategic thinking he'd never bothered to recognize. As they prepared to leave the party, Victoria handed Elena a final folder. "Tomorrow's schedule," she explained. "The press conference is at 9, followed by the building tour for major investors. The Fletcher and Associates meeting is scheduled for Thursday, assuming they're still interested in pursuing our business relationship." Elena nodded, already shifting into CEO mode for the challenges ahead. Building an empire had been the easy part compared to navigating the personal dynamics that tomorrow would bring. But tonight had proven that sometimes the most satisfying business victory is the one that also transforms the people around you. Derek offered his arm as they walked toward the elevators, a gesture that felt different than his earlier patronizing touches. "Elena," he said quietly, "I have a lot to learn about who you really are." She smiled, accepting his arm, but maintaining her composure. "Derek, you have a lot to learn about who you really are, too. Success isn't about who speaks loudest or claims the most credit. Sometimes it's about building something valuable while everyone else is busy explaining why it can't be done." The elevator doors closed on the holiday party, but opened on a future that would require both of them to redefine their assumptions about marriage, success, and the kind of partnership that could survive one spouse discovering the other had been quietly conquering the business world, one handmade creation at a time. 6 months later, Elena stood in the executive conference room on the 45th floor of the Meridian Tower, looking out over the city's skyline, while her assistant prepared for the quarterly board meeting. The view from her corner office encompassed the entire downtown district, including several other buildings that Lumina Holdings had acquired as part of their expansion strategy. The transformation had been remarkable, both professionally and personally. Derek had accepted a restructured position within Fletcher and Associates, which was now operating under a consulting contract with Lumina Holdings. The arrangement allowed him to maintain his career while learning new approaches to client relationships and business development. More importantly, their marriage had evolved into something neither of them had expected. Derek's initial shock had given way to genuine curiosity about Elena's business philosophy and strategic thinking. For the first time in years, they were having conversations about shared goals and complementary strengths rather than competing for recognition. The board meeting was scheduled to address their latest acquisition, a chain of artisan craft stores that would serve as both retail outlets and training centers for emerging entrepreneurs. Elena's vision extended beyond building her own empire to creating opportunities for others who might be dismissed as hobby crafters or small-time dreamers. Derek knocked on her office door, wearing the kind of professional confidence that now came from understanding his role in a larger organizational structure. "The Fletcher team is ready for their presentation. They've developed some interesting ideas for the artisan store marketing campaign." Elena smiled, noting how different his tone was when he talked about collaborative projects, rather than competitive achievements. "How do you think they'll handle the challenge of marketing to both individual crafters and corporate clients?" "Actually," he settled into one of her visitor chairs, "I think they're starting to understand that those aren't separate markets. Your approach of treating every customer as a potential business partner has changed how they think about audience segmentation." It was a small moment, but significant. Derek was finally grasping the business philosophy that had driven Elena's success. The understanding that every interaction could create value for multiple parties, and that sustainable growth came from empowering others rather than diminishing them. The irony wasn't lost on either of them that Derek's greatest professional growth had come from learning to see business through his wife's perspective. the same perspective he'd dismissed as hobby-realistic thinking for the first 5 years of their marriage. As they prepared for the meeting, Elena reflected on how the evening of the holiday party had changed everything. Not just the dramatic revelation of her hidden success, but the moment when Derek had been forced to confront his own assumptions about who deserved to be taken seriously in the business world. The craft business that had started as a genuine hobby had evolved into something much larger, a platform for demonstrating that success could be built through collaboration, respect for diverse perspectives, and the patient development of authentic value. The acquisition had been satisfying, but the transformation of attitudes and relationships had been truly meaningful. Derek stood to leave for the meeting, then paused at the door. Elena, I know I've said this before, but I want you to know that I'm proud of what you've built. Not just the company, but the way you've built it. You've changed how I think about leadership and partnership. She nodded, appreciating both his words and the genuine respect behind them. Derek, we've both learned something important. Building something meaningful isn't about proving others wrong. It's about creating something valuable enough that people want to be part of it. The afternoon sun streamed through her office windows, illuminating the city where her small Etsy shop had grown into a global enterprise. But the transformation hadn't been in the business metrics or acquisition announcements. It had been in the recognition that true success was measured not just in financial growth, but in the ability to change minds, build genuine partnerships, and create opportunities for others to achieve their own version of meaningful work. As Elena gathered her materials for the board meeting, she smiled at the memory of Derek's confident prediction that real business happened in boardrooms, not at kitchen tables where wives played with craft projects. Today's meeting would be conducted in the most sophisticated boardroom money could buy, but the ideas being discussed had originated at that same kitchen table he'd dismissed so confidently. Sometimes the sweetest victory wasn't in proving others wrong, but in creating something so compelling that even the skeptics wanted to be part of its continued success. The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Elena's executive suite as she reviewed the quarterly expansion reports. Lumina Holdings had grown exponentially in the months following the Meridian Tower acquisition, but today's board meeting would address their most ambitious project yet: the launch of Artisan Academy, a global network of training centers designed to transform hobby crafters into legitimate business owners. Victoria Chen entered carrying a steaming cup of coffee and the morning's business journals. The Wall Street Journal piece is generating significant interest, she announced, settling into the chair across from Elena's mahogany desk. 3 major investment firms have called this morning requesting meetings about potential partnerships. Elena smiled, remembering how Derek used to dismiss her business publications as craft magazines. The Wall Street Journal profile had featured her on the cover with the headline, "From Etsy to Empire: How One Woman Redefined Luxury Manufacturing." The article detailed not just her financial success, but her innovative approach to scaling artisan production while maintaining quality and authenticity. "What's the response been like from the craft community?" Elena asked, genuinely curious about how her former peers were reacting to her transformation from small-time seller to corporate leader. Victoria consulted her tablet, scrolling through social media analytics and industry publications. Overwhelmingly positive, actually. The comment sections are filled with stories from other crafters who feel inspired to expand their own operations. Several have already submitted applications for the Academy's first cohort. The Artisan Academy represented Elena's vision of sustainable growth in the maker economy. Rather than simply acquiring successful small businesses, she wanted to create infrastructure that would help countless entrepreneurs develop their skills, understand market dynamics, and build sustainable enterprises. The program would combine traditional business education with hands-on training in production scaling, quality control, and brand development. Derek appeared in the doorway carrying a presentation folder and wearing the confident but humble expression that had replaced his former arrogance. His role as Director of Strategic Partnerships had evolved naturally from his background in advertising, but now he approached client relationships with genuine curiosity rather than performative dominance. The Fletcher team has completed their analysis of the Academy marketing strategy, he reported, entering the office with the respectful deference that had become natural between them. They're recommending a multi-platform approach that emphasizes storytelling and community building rather than traditional advertising metrics. Elena noted the sophistication of his language around marketing strategy. 6 months of working within her corporate structure had taught Derek to think beyond flashy campaigns towards sustainable relationship building. His suggestions now reflected an understanding of long-term brand development rather than short-term attention grabbing. How did they propose reaching potential Academy participants? She asked, genuinely interested in his perspective. Their conversations about business strategy had become collaborative exchanges rather than one-sided lectures. Derek opened his folder, revealing detailed demographic analyses and communication strategies. They've identified 3 primary audiences: established crafters looking to scale up, corporate professionals seeking creative side income, and recent graduates interested in entrepreneurship outside traditional career paths. Each group requires different messaging and different entry points into the program. The analysis impressed Elena with its nuanced understanding of motivation and barriers. Fletcher and Associates had evolved significantly since the night when Derek publicly dismissed the complexity of her target market. Their current approach recognized that successful marketing required deep empathy for customer challenges rather than assumptions about consumer behavior. They've also proposed partnership opportunities with existing craft organizations, community colleges, and women's business networks. The idea is to position the Academy as a bridge between hobby-level crafting and professional enterprise, rather than a replacement for existing educational options. Victoria checked her watch and gathered her materials. The board members should be arriving soon. Are you ready for the Academy presentation? Elena stood, smoothing her tailored blazer. Another piece from her own fashion line that Derek now recognized as sophisticated professional wear rather than hobby crafting. Let's see if we can convince some very serious investors to fund what many people still consider an elaborate craft project. The boardroom on the 46th floor had been redesigned to reflect Lumina Holdings' unique position between artisan authenticity and corporate sophistication. The conference table was handcrafted from reclaimed wood by one of our partner artisans, while state-of-the-art technology enabled seamless video conferencing with international team members. The space embodied Elena's philosophy that professionalism and creativity were complementary rather than contradictory values. Board members began arriving precisely on schedule, representing a mixture of traditional investors and industry innovators who understood the evolving landscape of retail and manufacturing. Elena had carefully selected individuals who brought both financial expertise and genuine appreciation for the maker economy's potential. Margaret Thornton, former CEO of a major retail chain, settled into her seat while reviewing the Academy's projected financial models. Elena, these numbers are impressive, but I'm curious about scalability. How do you maintain quality control and brand consistency across multiple locations while preserving the authentic artisan experience? The question reflected exactly the kind of sophisticated analysis Elena had hoped to engage with. Unlike Derek's former dismissive comments about simple craft transactions, Margaret was asking about the complex operational challenges that separated successful expansion from unsustainable growth. That's precisely why we're investing so heavily in the Academy model, Elena replied, activating the presentation system to display detailed operational frameworks. Rather than simply acquiring successful small businesses, we're creating educational infrastructure that enables independent businesses to develop their own sustainable practices while maintaining connection to our broader network. The presentation outlined a sophisticated system of mentorship, resource sharing, and collaborative marketing that would benefit individual artisans while strengthening the overall ecosystem. Academy graduates would maintain independence while accessing bulk purchasing power, shared technology platforms, and collective bargaining strength for shipping and logistics. James Rodriguez, representing a major venture capital firm, leaned forward with interest.
This approach reminds me of successful models in technology and consulting, where network effects create value for all participants, rather than requiring centralized control. Are you seeing similar dynamics in your pilot programs? Elena smiled, recognizing the sophisticated business analysis that Derek had never bothered to apply to her work. Exactly. Our beta cohort has demonstrated that collaborative competition actually enhances everyone's success. When artisans share knowledge about pricing strategies, production efficiency, and customer service, the entire market segment becomes more professional and profitable. Derek stood to present the marketing analysis, and Elena noted how comfortable he'd become discussing business models that prioritized collaboration over domination. His presentation style had evolved from performative confidence to genuine expertise, reflecting months of actually listening to customer needs and market dynamics. The preliminary research shows that consumers are increasingly interested in purchasing from businesses they perceive as authentic and socially responsible, Derek explained, displaying consumer behavior data with the same attention to detail he once reserved for traditional advertising metrics. The Academy model appeals to buyers who want to support small businesses, but also expect professional quality and reliable service. Margaret nodded approvingly. So you're creating infrastructure that enables small businesses to compete with mass production on quality and reliability, while maintaining the personal connection and unique design that consumers value in handmade goods. Precisely, Elena confirmed. We're solving the fundamental challenge that has limited artisan businesses for decades, the false choice between remaining small and authentic or scaling up and losing personal touch. The Academy creates a third option, where growth enhances rather than compromises authenticity. Victoria presented the financial projections, showing how the Academy model would generate revenue through multiple streams: tuition and fees, ongoing membership services, percentage of graduate business revenues, and licensing of educational content to other organizations. The diversified income structure provided stability while creating incentives for long-term participant success. The most interesting aspect, Victoria explained, is that our success becomes directly tied to our graduate success. We only profit when they build sustainable businesses, which creates natural alignment between our corporate goals and their entrepreneurial objectives. James Rodriguez reviewed the projected returns with obvious appreciation for the model's sophistication. This addresses one of the major concerns about education-based businesses, the misalignment between institutional success and student outcomes. Your structure ensures that Lumina Holdings remains invested in graduate success long after initial training is complete. Elena felt a surge of satisfaction as she watched sophisticated investors engage seriously with business concepts that Derek had once dismissed as unrealistic hobby thinking. The Academy represented everything she'd been trying to explain to him for years, that sustainable success required understanding complex market dynamics, developing genuine relationships with customers and partners, and creating value for multiple stakeholders simultaneously. There's also the social impact dimension, Elena continued, advancing to slides showing economic development projections. Our analysis suggests that every Academy graduate creates an average of 3 additional jobs within 2 years, either by hiring employees or by increasing demand for suppliers and service providers. The multiplier effect could be significant for local economies. Margaret Thornton looked up from her notes with renewed interest. Elena, this sounds like you're positioning Lumina Holdings as a catalyst for economic development rather than just another education company. Are you considering partnerships with government agencies or nonprofit organizations? The question opened exactly the discussion Elena had hoped to facilitate. We've had preliminary conversations with the Small Business Administration and several state economic development agencies. There's significant interest in supporting programs that create sustainable entrepreneurship opportunities, particularly in communities that have been economically disadvantaged. Derek added context from his partnership development work.
We're also exploring relationships with community banks and credit unions that want to support small business lending, but need borrowers with stronger business fundamentals. Academy graduates would enter the lending process with comprehensive business plans, financial literacy training, and ongoing mentorship support. Elena watched the board members exchange glances that indicated serious interest in the Academy's potential impact. These were individuals accustomed to evaluating business proposals based on financial returns, but they were clearly intrigued by a model that generated profits while creating genuine social value. Let me understand the timeline, James Rodriguez said, consulting his calendar. You're proposing to launch the first Academy location within 6 months, with plans for national expansion over 3 years. What are the major risks and mitigation strategies? Elena had anticipated this question and prepared detailed risk analysis. The primary challenge is maintaining program quality while scaling rapidly. We're addressing this through extensive instructor training, standardized curriculum development, and continuous feedback systems that allow for rapid course correction. Victoria presented operational details about facility acquisition, technology infrastructure, and regulatory compliance across different jurisdictions. The complexity of launching an educational enterprise had required Lumina Holdings to develop entirely new competencies in areas far removed from jewelry manufacturing and retail sales. We're also establishing partnerships with existing educational institutions rather than competing directly. Community colleges can offer Academy courses as continuing education programming, which reduces our facility costs while leveraging their established student recruitment and support systems. The collaborative approach reflected Elena's broader business philosophy about creating value through partnerships rather than market domination. Every aspect of the Academy had been designed to enhance everyone's capabilities rather than concentrating advantage in single organizations. There's also the social impact dimension, Elena continued, advancing to her final presentation slides. We're proposing to establish the Elena Martinez Foundation as a complementary nonprofit organization that would provide scholarships and mentorship for Academy participants who might not otherwise be able to afford the program. The foundation represented Elena's commitment to ensuring that the Academy's benefits extended beyond individuals who already had access to education and startup capital. By creating multiple pathways into entrepreneurship, Lumina Holdings would be building a more diverse and resilient ecosystem of small businesses. James Rodriguez studied the foundation's proposed structure with obvious appreciation for its strategic design.
This approach reminds me of successful models in technology and consulting, where network effects create value for all participants rather than requiring centralized control. Are you seeing similar dynamics in your pilot programs? Elena smiled, recognizing the sophisticated business analysis that Derek had never bothered to apply to her work. Exactly. Our beta cohort has demonstrated that collaborative competition actually enhances everyone's success. When artisans share knowledge about pricing strategies, production efficiency, and customer service, the entire market segment becomes more professional and profitable. Derek stood to present the marketing analysis, and Elena noted how comfortable he'd become discussing business models that prioritized collaboration over domination. His presentation style had evolved from performative confidence to genuine expertise, reflecting months of actually listening to customer needs and market dynamics. The preliminary research shows that consumers are increasingly interested in purchasing from businesses they perceive as authentic and socially responsible, Derek explained, displaying consumer behavior data with the same attention to detail he once reserved for traditional advertising metrics. The Academy model appeals to buyers who want to support small businesses, but also expect professional quality and reliable service. Margaret nodded approvingly. So you're creating infrastructure that enables small businesses to compete with mass production on quality and reliability while maintaining the personal connection and unique design that consumers value in handmade goods. Precisely, Elena confirmed. We're solving the fundamental challenge that has limited artisan businesses for decades, the false choice between remaining small and authentic or scaling up and losing personal touch. The Academy creates a third option where growth enhances rather than compromising authenticity. Victoria presented the financial projections, showing how the Academy model would generate revenue through multiple streams: tuition and fees, ongoing membership services, percentage of graduate business revenues, and licensing of educational content to other organizations. The diversified income structure provided stability while creating incentives for long-term participant success. The most interesting aspect, Victoria explained, is that our success becomes directly tied to our graduates' success. We only profit when they build sustainable businesses, which creates natural alignment between our corporate goals and their entrepreneurial objectives. James Rodriguez reviewed the projected returns with obvious appreciation for the model's sophistication. This addresses one of the major concerns about education-based businesses, the misalignment between institutional success and student outcomes. Your structure ensures that Lumina Holdings remains invested in graduate success long after initial training is complete. Elena felt a surge of satisfaction as she watched sophisticated investors engage seriously with business concepts that Derek had once dismissed as unrealistic hobby thinking. The Academy represented everything she'd been trying to explain to him for years, that sustainable success required understanding complex market dynamics, developing genuine relationships with customers and partners, and creating value for multiple stakeholders simultaneously. There's also the social impact dimension, Elena continued, advancing to slides showing economic development projections. Our analysis suggests that every Academy graduate creates an average of 3 additional jobs within 2 years, either by hiring employees or by increasing demand for suppliers and service providers. The multiplier effect could be significant for local economies. Margaret Thornton looked up from her notes with renewed interest. Elena, this sounds like you're positioning Lumina Holdings as a catalyst for economic development rather than just another education company. Are you considering partnerships with government agencies or nonprofit organizations? The question opened exactly the discussion Elena had hoped to facilitate. We've had preliminary conversations with the Small Business Administration and several state economic development agencies. There's significant interest in supporting programs that create sustainable entrepreneurship opportunities, particularly in communities that have been economically disadvantaged. Derek added context from his partnership development work. We're also exploring relationships with community banks and credit unions that want to support small business lending but need borrowers with stronger business fundamentals. Academy graduates would enter the lending process with comprehensive business plans, financial literacy training, and ongoing mentorship support. Elena watched the board members exchange glances that indicated serious interest in the Academy's potential impact. These were individuals accustomed to evaluating business proposals based on financial returns, but they were clearly intrigued by a model that generated profits while creating genuine social value. Let me understand the timeline, James Rodriguez said, consulting his calendar. You're proposing to launch the first Academy location within 6 months, with plans for national expansion over 3 years. What are the major risks and mitigation strategies? Elena had anticipated this question and prepared detailed risk analysis. The primary challenge is maintaining program quality while scaling rapidly. We're addressing this through extensive instructor training, standardized curriculum development, and continuous feedback systems that allow for rapid course correction. Victoria presented operational details about facility acquisition, technology infrastructure, and regulatory compliance across different jurisdictions. The complexity of launching an education enterprise had required Lumina Holdings to develop entirely new competencies in areas far removed from jewelry manufacturing and retail sales. We're also establishing partnerships with existing educational institutions rather than competing directly, Derek explained. Community colleges can offer Academy courses as continuing education programming, which reduces our facility costs while leveraging their established student recruitment and support systems. The collaborative approach reflected Elena's broader business philosophy about creating value through partnerships rather than market domination. Every aspect of the Academy had been designed to strengthen existing institutions and communities rather than displacing them with corporate alternatives. Margaret Thornton closed her portfolio and leaned back in her chair. Elena, I have to say, this is one of the most thoughtful business expansions I've reviewed in years. You're not just scaling your existing operations, you're creating entirely new market infrastructure that could transform how we think about small business development. The comment validated everything Elena had been working towards since those early days when Derek dismissed her ambitions as unrealistic hobby thinking.
The academy represented the logical evolution of her business philosophy, that sustainable success required building systems that enhanced everyone's capabilities rather than concentrating advantage in single organizations. There's also the social impact dimension, Alana continued, advancing to slides showing economic development projections. Our analysis suggests that every academy graduate creates an average of 3 additional jobs within 2 years, either by hiring employees or by increasing demand for suppliers and service providers. The multiplier effect could be significant for local economies. James Rodriguez studied the foundation's proposed structure with obvious appreciation for the model's sophistication.
The afternoon sun streamed through her office windows as Elena settled into her desk chair to review the implementation timeline for the Academy's launch. 6 months earlier, she had been sitting in the same office, explaining to Derek that building something meaningful required patience, vision, and willingness to challenge conventional assumptions about business success. Now they were preparing to launch an educational initiative that would transform how creative entrepreneurs developed their businesses while creating sustainable economic opportunities for countless individuals who might otherwise remain trapped in traditional employment that failed to utilize their talents or fulfill their aspirations. Elena opened her laptop to begin drafting the detailed operational plans that would transform the Academy from board-approved concept to functioning reality. The work ahead would be complex and demanding, requiring coordination across multiple locations, integration with existing educational institutions, and development of curriculum that balanced business fundamentals with creative industry specifics. But as she began outlining the instructor recruitment strategy, Elena felt the same excitement that had motivated her original Etsy shop: the possibility of proving that commerce could be a force for creativity, community building, and individual empowerment, rather than just profit extraction from market inefficiencies. The Academy represented everything she had been trying to explain to Derek during those years when he dismissed her business philosophy as unrealistic hobby thinking. Now he was actively contributing to its development, applying his marketing expertise toward goals that transcended traditional corporate metrics while maintaining rigorous standards for financial sustainability and operational effectiveness. Elena's phone buzzed with a text message from Victoria. Preliminary enrollment inquiries for the Academy have exceeded projections by 300%. We may need to accelerate the timeline for additional locations. The response validated Elena's belief that there was massive, untapped demand for business education specifically designed for creative entrepreneurs. Thousands of individuals were apparently ready to invest in developing their craft businesses into sustainable enterprises, but they needed educational infrastructure that understood their unique challenges and opportunities. As Elena worked through the afternoon, refining operational plans and responding to media inquiries about the Academy announcement, she reflected on how dramatically her professional landscape had transformed since that holiday party when Derek publicly dismissed her business capabilities. The woman who had once been mocked for her cute craft hobby was now designing educational programs that could influence how an entire generation of entrepreneurs approached business development. The handmade jewelry that Derek had characterized as simple transactions between individual customers had evolved into a platform for demonstrating sophisticated business principles that traditional corporate education often overlooked. But perhaps most significantly, Elena had proven that success didn't require adopting someone else's definition of professionalism or abandoning personal values in favor of pure profit maximization. The Academy embodied her conviction that the most sustainable business strategies were those that created value for multiple stakeholders while maintaining authentic commitment to social impact. Derek knocked on her office door as the afternoon light began to fade, carrying coffee and the kind of respectful demeanor that had replaced his former presumptuous familiarity. Elena, the Fletcher team has completed their analysis of Academy marketing channels. They're recommending a storytelling approach that features successful craft entrepreneurs rather than focusing on institutional credentials. Elena appreciated both the strategic insight and the collaborative way Derek presented his recommendations. That makes sense. People considering the Academy want to see evidence that creative businesses can be financially viable, not just academic theories about entrepreneurship.
Derek settled into a visitor chair, consulting his notes with the careful attention to detail that had replaced his former casual confidence. They've also identified several craft industry influencers who might be interested in academy partnerships. The idea would be to have established entrepreneurs share their experiences while promoting business education for their followers. The marketing strategy reflected sophisticated understanding of how creative communities shared information and made decisions about professional development. Rather than relying on traditional advertising or institutional authority, the Academy would build credibility through authentic relationships with respected members of the craft community. How do they propose structuring these partnerships? Elena asked, genuinely curious about Derek's evolving perspective on relationship building versus transactional promotion. Derek opened his folder to reveal detailed partnership frameworks that emphasized mutual benefit rather than simple endorsement arrangements. The influencers would receive Academy training themselves, then share their experiences with their audiences while offering exclusive access to certain programs. Everyone benefits. The influencers enhance their own business skills, their followers receive valuable education, and the Academy builds authentic credibility. Elena noted how Derek's approach had evolved from treating partnerships as promotional opportunities toward creating genuine value for all participants. His marketing strategies now reflected the same collaborative philosophy that guided her broader business development. They've also proposed a mentorship component where Academy graduates could become paid mentors for new participants, Derek continued. This creates ongoing income opportunities for successful entrepreneurs while providing personal guidance for people just starting their business development journey. The mentorship structure embodied Elena's belief that sustainable business models should create opportunities for everyone involved rather than concentrating benefits in single organizations. Academy graduates would continue benefiting from their education while helping others achieve similar success. As Derek outlined additional marketing strategies, Elena appreciated how naturally he had internalized her business philosophy about creating value through collaboration rather than competition. His recommendations consistently focused on building genuine relationships and long-term community engagement, rather than pursuing short-term customer acquisition through aggressive promotional tactics. Derek, these strategies align perfectly with our overall mission. The Academy succeeds when our participants succeed, so marketing approaches that emphasize authentic relationship building will generate the most sustainable enrollment growth. Derek smiled with the satisfaction of someone who had learned to align his professional expertise with meaningful goals rather than simply maximizing conventional metrics. Elena, working on the Academy has taught me that effective marketing isn't about convincing people to want something they don't need. It's about connecting people who have genuine aspirations with resources that can help them achieve those goals. The insight reflected Derek's transformation from someone who viewed marketing as persuasive manipulation toward understanding it as relationship facilitation. His professional development had paralleled Elena's company evolution toward more sophisticated business practices that created value for all stakeholders. As evening approached, Elena and Derek prepared to conclude their workday with the kind of collaborative efficiency that had replaced their former pattern of competitive tension. Their professional relationship had evolved into genuine partnership based on complementary expertise and shared commitment to the Academy's mission. Elena, I've been thinking about something. The Academy represents everything you were trying to explain to me during those years when I was too arrogant to listen. I understand now that your success wasn't accidental or limited to craft industries. It was the result of sophisticated thinking about sustainable value creation. Elena appreciated his acknowledgement of her business expertise, but she was more interested in their future collaboration than past misunderstandings. Derek, we both learned important lessons. You've helped me understand marketing and partnership development in ways that enhance our mission. The Academy is stronger because of your contributions. Derek paused at the door, looking back with the kind of respect that had replaced his former condescension. Elena, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of something meaningful. I'm learning that professional success feels different when it's connected to genuine social impact rather than just personal advancement. As Derek departed for his own office, Elena remained at her desk to finalize the Academy implementation timeline.
The work ahead would require coordinating multiple complex systems while maintaining focus on the individual entrepreneurs who would ultimately determine the program's success. But as she reviewed enrollment projections and curriculum development schedules, Elena felt confident that the Academy would achieve its ambitious goals. The overwhelming response to their announcement demonstrated that thousands of creative entrepreneurs were ready to invest in developing their businesses beyond hobby level, but they needed educational infrastructure that understood their unique challenges and opportunities. The Academy would provide that infrastructure while proving that business education could be both financially sustainable and genuinely transformative for participants. Elena's vision of commerce as a force for individual empowerment and community development was becoming operational reality through carefully designed programs that created value for everyone involved. 6 months after the holiday party where Derek had publicly dismissed her business capabilities, Elena was launching an educational initiative that would influence how an entire generation of entrepreneurs approached creative business development. The handmade jewelry business that had been characterized as unrealistic hobby thinking was now serving as the foundation for sophisticated programs that combined business fundamentals with industry-specific expertise. The transformation validated Elena's conviction that success didn't require abandoning personal values or adopting someone else's definition of professionalism. The Academy embodied her belief that the most sustainable business strategies were those that enhanced everyone's capabilities while maintaining authentic commitment to social impact and individual creativity. 18 months after the Academy's announcement, Elena stood before a packed auditorium at Stanford Graduate School of Business, delivering the keynote address for their annual entrepreneurship conference. The room was filled with MBA students, venture capitalists, and established business leaders who had come to hear from the woman whose unconventional path to success had become a case study in sustainable business development. When I first started selling handmade jewelry online, Elena began, her voice carrying easily across the lecture hall. My husband told me I was playing entrepreneur. He suggested I leave real business to people who understood market dynamics. The audience chuckled, but Elena's tone remained serious. What he didn't realize was that I was conducting one of the most sophisticated market research projects of my career. The presentation screen behind her displayed images from her original craft workspace, the same spare bedroom setup that Derek had once dismissed as inadequate for serious business operations. But Elena's narrative transformed those humble beginnings into evidence of strategic thinking and careful resource allocation. Every piece I created was an experiment in customer preference, production efficiency, and price sensitivity, she continued. Every interaction with buyers taught me something about market demand, quality expectations, and brand development. While traditional business education focuses on theoretical frameworks, I was testing real strategies with actual customers who were spending their own money. Dr. Patricia Walsh, the conference organizer, had introduced Elena as someone who had revolutionized both luxury manufacturing and business education. The Academy's success had exceeded all projections, with graduates reporting average revenue increases of 300% within their first year of program completion. Elena advanced to slides showing the Academy's current operations across 12 states, with international expansion planned for the following year. The fundamental insight that drove our growth wasn't about jewelry or craft specifically. It was about recognizing that every industry contains sophisticated challenges that require creative problem solving, regardless of how simple those challenges might appear to outside observers. A student raised her hand from the front row. Professor Sullivan, your husband now works for your company in a senior management role. How do you manage the dynamics of supervising someone who initially dismissed your business capabilities? Elena smiled at the question, remembering countless similar inquiries from journalists and business school faculty. Derek's professional development has been remarkable, but it required him to fundamentally reassess his assumptions about expertise and authority. He had to learn that understanding business principles isn't the same as understanding how to apply those principles in specific contexts. The audience leaned forward with interest as Elena elaborated on the organizational psychology challenges that had emerged as Lumina Holdings expanded. We discovered that traditional corporate hierarchies often suppress exactly the kind of innovative thinking that drives sustainable growth.
Our most successful initiatives have come from collaborative teams that include people with diverse professional backgrounds and unconventional expertise. Derek had indeed evolved into one of the company's most effective partnership developers, but his success had required abandoning the competitive approach to professional relationships that had characterized his advertising career. He now specialized in identifying potential collaborators whose unique perspectives could enhance Lumina Holdings' capabilities. The Academy model works because it rejects the assumption that business education should be standardized across industries, Elena continued. Creative entrepreneurs face specific challenges related to production scaling, intellectual property protection, and brand authenticity that aren't addressed in traditional MBA curricula. Dr. Walsh stepped forward to facilitate the question and answer session. Elena, your company's financial performance has been extraordinary, but you've also emphasized social impact metrics. How do you balance profit maximization with community development goals? Elena had anticipated this question and prepared slides showing Lumina Holdings' integrated measurement systems. We've learned that social impact and financial performance are synergistic rather than competitive when business models are designed thoughtfully. Our most profitable initiatives are also our most beneficial for community economic development. The Academy's data supported this claim convincingly. Graduates had created over 15,000 jobs in their local communities, with many becoming suppliers or service providers for other Academy businesses. The network effects had generated economic multipliers that far exceeded traditional business development programs. Moreover, Elena added, our social impact initiatives have become significant competitive advantages in recruiting talent, attracting customers, and developing partnerships. Companies that demonstrate authentic commitment to community development access resources and opportunities that aren't available to purely profit-focused organizations. A venture capitalist in the back row stood to ask about scalability challenges. Ms. Sullivan, you've achieved remarkable growth while maintaining quality and authenticity. What systems enable you to preserve those values as you expand internationally? Elena's response reflected months of careful consideration about sustainable expansion strategies. We've learned that authentic values can't be imposed through corporate policies or training programs. They have to be embedded in operational systems that make values-aligned behavior the most efficient and profitable approach. The Academy's instructor training programs exemplified this principle. Rather than simply teaching business concepts, instructors learn to identify and develop each participant's unique strengths while connecting them to market opportunities that aligned with their personal values and professional aspirations.
For example, Elena explained, our curriculum emphasizes collaborative competition rather than zero-sum market dynamics. Participants learn that their success is enhanced when their peers also succeed, because strong ecosystems of creative businesses benefit everyone involved. Dr. Walsh consulted her notes and addressed Elena's broader impact on business education. Several universities have integrated Academy case studies into their entrepreneurship programs. How do you see your approach influencing traditional business school curricula? Elena paused thoughtfully before responding. I hope business schools will recognize that innovation often comes from practitioners who are solving real problems with limited resources, rather than from theoretical frameworks developed in academic isolation. The most valuable business education connects rigorous analysis with practical experimentation. The Academy's partnership with community colleges had demonstrated that effective business education could happen in diverse settings with students from varied backgrounds. Some of the most successful graduates had been individuals without college degrees who brought deep industry knowledge and strong customer relationships to their educational experience. We've also learned that peer learning is often more effective than expert instruction for developing practical business skills, Elena continued. Academy participants learn as much from each other as they do from formal curriculum because they're sharing real experiences with immediate applicability. A business school dean in the middle section raised her hand. Elena, your success has inspired numerous imitators. How do you maintain competitive advantage when other organizations are copying your business model? Elena had encountered this challenge frequently as the Academy concept gained recognition. Several major corporations had launched similar programs, but most failed to achieve comparable results because they treated education as a revenue stream rather than a collaborative development process. Authentic relationship building can't be replicated through superficial program modifications, Elena explained. Organizations that try to copy our model without understanding its philosophical foundations typically create training programs rather than educational communities. The distinction was crucial. Academy participants developed ongoing relationships with instructors, mentors, and fellow entrepreneurs that continued long after formal program completion. These networks provided resources, opportunities, and support that traditional business education rarely offered. Also, Elena added with a slight smile, competitive advantage isn't our primary concern. We measure success by the number of sustainable creative businesses that exist in the world, regardless of whether they have direct connections to our programs. Market competition that raises overall standards benefits everyone. Dr. Walsh looked at her watch and announced time for final questions. A young woman near the front identified herself as a current craft business owner considering academy enrollment. Miss Sullivan, I'm intimidated by the business development process because I don't have traditional credentials or corporate experience. How do you help people overcome imposter syndrome when entering professional business environments? Elena recognized the question as one she'd struggled with personally during her early expansion phases. Imposter syndrome often reflects accurate assessment that you don't fit conventional expectations, rather than inadequate capabilities. The solution isn't to change yourself to match traditional profiles, it's to demonstrate that different approaches can be equally or more effective. The Academy specifically addressed confidence issues by connecting new entrepreneurs with successful graduates who had overcome similar challenges. Mentorship relationships were structured to provide both practical guidance and emotional support for navigating professional environments that might initially seem intimidating. We've learned that authenticity is actually a competitive advantage in most business contexts. Customers, partners, and investors are often refreshed by entrepreneurs who bring genuine passion and unique perspectives rather than mimicking conventional corporate communication styles. The applause as Elena concluded her presentation was enthusiastic and sustained. Dr. Walsh approached the podium to thank her and announced that Stanford would be offering Academy curriculum as elective coursework for business school students beginning the following semester. As audience members filed out, several approached Elena with business cards and collaboration proposals. The networking that followed her presentations had become one of the most valuable aspects of her speaking engagements, connecting her to potential partners, customers, and expansion opportunities that enhanced the Academy's capabilities. Derek met Elena in the hallway outside the auditorium, carrying coffee, and wearing the proud expression that had replaced his former competitive tension when she received professional recognition. His role as Director of Strategic Partnerships had evolved to include managing Elena's speaking schedule and identifying collaboration opportunities that aligned with their company's mission. The response was exceptional, Derek reported, consulting his tablet for social media analytics and media requests that had generated during the presentation. 3 business schools have already submitted partnership proposals, and the Small Business Administration wants to discuss incorporating Academy curriculum into their training programs. Elena appreciated Derek's professional support, but she was more interested in the individual entrepreneurs who had approached her with specific questions about developing their businesses. The Academy's ultimate success depended on helping people achieve their personal goals rather than generating impressive institutional partnerships. Did you connect with the woman who asked about imposter syndrome? I want to make sure she receives information about our next enrollment cycle. Derek smiled, recognizing Elena's consistent focus on individual impact rather than aggregate metrics. I got her contact information and scheduled a preliminary consultation with one of our regional coordinators. She's exactly the kind of participant who benefits most from our mentorship programming. Their conversation reflected the collaborative approach to business development that had become natural for both of them. Derek's marketing expertise enhanced Elena's educational mission while remaining subordinate to her core values about community development and individual empowerment. As they drove back toward the airport, Elena reviewed her notes from the audience questions, identifying themes that might inform Academy curriculum development or operational improvements. Each speaking engagement provided market research opportunities that helped her understand evolving needs among creative entrepreneurs.
Derek, I've been thinking about the scalability question from that venture capitalist, Elena said, studying traffic patterns while considering expansion strategies. Maybe we should explore franchise relationships with established educational institutions rather than trying to manage all Academy locations directly.
Derek noted her comment and pulled up preliminary research about educational franchising models on his phone. That could address the quality control concerns while enabling faster geographic expansion. We could maintain curriculum standards and brand consistency without requiring massive capital investment for facility acquisition. The suggestion reflected Derek's evolved understanding of business development as collaborative problem solving rather than competitive market domination. His recommendations consistently emphasized partnership approaches that created value for multiple stakeholders rather than concentrating advantages in single organizations. Elena's phone buzzed with messages from Victoria Chen, who was managing daily operations while Elena traveled for speaking engagements. The Academy's administrative complexity had grown exponentially as enrollment expanded, requiring sophisticated systems for student tracking, instructor coordination, and quality assessment across multiple locations. Victoria says the Denver location is ready for its official opening ceremony next month, Elena reported, scrolling through operational updates and enrollment statistics. They've already received applications from over 200 potential participants, with a waiting list for the spring semester. The Denver Academy represented their first expansion into mountain region markets, where creative entrepreneurs face unique challenges related to geographic isolation and limited access to traditional business resources. The location would test whether their educational model could adapt to different regional economic conditions. Derek consulted the partnership development schedule on his tablet. The Colorado Small Business Development Center wants to co-sponsor the opening ceremony, and several local banks have offered to provide financial literacy workshops for Academy participants. Elena noted the collaborative enthusiasm that had characterized most of their expansion efforts. Communities typically embraced Academy locations because they created local economic development opportunities rather than extracting resources for distant corporate headquarters. I think we should accept those partnership offers, Elena decided. The Academy works best when it's integrated into existing community business support networks rather than competing with them. Their flight boarding announcement interrupted their conversation, but Elena continued thinking about sustainable expansion strategies as they settled into their seats. The Academy's success had created opportunities for rapid growth, but she remained committed to maintaining program quality and authentic community engagement. Derek opened his laptop to work on partnership development proposals during the flight, while Elena reviewed curriculum feedback from recent graduates. Their collaborative productivity had become one of the most satisfying aspects of their professional relationship, combining Derek's expertise in marketing with Elena's educational vision. "Elena, I've been analyzing graduation outcomes data," Derek said, showing her charts that tracked participant business development over time. "The most successful Academy graduates are those who maintain ongoing connections with their cohort members after program completion." The observation confirmed Elena's intuition that sustainable business development required community support rather than individual achievement. Academy participants who continued collaborating with their peers typically achieved higher revenue growth and greater personal satisfaction than those who pursued purely independent strategies. Maybe we should formalize alumni networking as part of our ongoing programming. Regular reunion events, collaborative project opportunities, joint marketing initiatives. Derek made notes about alumni engagement strategies while Elena continued reviewing curriculum assessments. Their ability to identify improvement opportunities through data analysis had become one of the Academy's competitive advantages, enabling continuous refinement of educational programming based on actual participant outcomes. The flight provided uninterrupted time for strategic planning, and by the time they landed, Elena and Derek had outlined several initiatives that could enhance Academy effectiveness while creating additional revenue streams through expanded programming. Victoria met them at the airport with updates about operational developments that had occurred during their absence. The Academy's rapid growth required constant coordination among multiple teams, managing curriculum development, instructor training, student services, and administrative operations. "The media response to your Stanford presentation has been overwhelming," Victoria reported, as they drove toward downtown offices. "Business Week wants to feature the Academy in their next issue about innovative education models, and NPR has requested an interview for their entrepreneurship series." Elena appreciated the recognition, but she was more interested in operational metrics that indicated whether the Academy was achieving its educational goals. Media attention was valuable for recruitment and credibility, but program effectiveness was measured by participant success rather than publicity coverage.
"What's the latest feedback from current participants?" Elena asked, reviewing survey responses and instructor reports on her phone. Victoria consulted her tablet for recent assessment data. Satisfaction scores remain consistently high across all locations, and business development metrics show steady improvement as participants progress through the curriculum. The mentorship programming is particularly effective for building confidence and practical skills. Elena felt gratified that their educational approach was generating measurable impact for individual entrepreneurs. The Academy's ultimate validation would always be the sustainable businesses that participants built, rather than institutional recognition or financial returns for Lumina Holdings. As they reached the Meridian Tower, Elena noted the construction activities surrounding the building's ground floor renovation. The Academy's flagship location was being expanded to include public exhibition space where program graduates could display and sell their products while demonstrating production techniques for visitors. "The retail integration is progressing ahead of schedule," Victoria reported, noticing Elena's interest in the construction progress. "We should be able to open the Maker Marketplace by the end of next month, with over 50 Academy graduates participating as featured vendors." The marketplace represented Elena's vision of education that connected directly to economic opportunity. Academy participants would have immediate access to retail channels that complemented their business development training, while visitors could observe authentic creative processes that demonstrated the sophistication of handmade production. Derek reviewed his schedule for the afternoon, which included meetings with potential Academy partners and interviews with applicants for instructor positions. The quality of educational programming depended heavily on recruiting instructors who combined business expertise with genuine commitment to participant success. "Elena, the instructor candidate interviews are scheduled for 2 o'clock, Derek reminded her as they entered the elevator. "We're interviewing 3 people with corporate consulting backgrounds and 2 current Academy graduates who wanted transition into teaching roles." Elena preferred hiring instructors who had personal experience with the challenges Academy participants faced, even if their formal credentials were less impressive than traditional business school faculty. Authentic empathy and practical knowledge often proved more valuable than theoretical expertise for helping entrepreneurs navigate real business development obstacles. In her executive office, Elena found waiting materials from the Elena Martinez Foundation, which had been operating for 6 months with remarkable results. The foundation provided scholarships for Academy enrollment while conducting research about barriers to creative entrepreneurship, particularly among underrepresented communities.
Sarah Mitchell, the Foundation's research director, had prepared a comprehensive report about Foundation scholarship recipients' progress through Academy programming. The data revealed significant differences in educational needs and business development challenges faced by entrepreneurs from different demographic backgrounds. The research suggests that traditional business education assumes access to resources and networks that many creative entrepreneurs simply don't have, Elena observed, reviewing charts that showed correlation between participant backgrounds and program outcome variations. Derek studied the demographic analysis with interest, recognizing marketing implications for Academy recruitment and curriculum design. This data could help us develop targeted outreach strategies that reach entrepreneurs who might not otherwise consider formal business education. Elena appreciated Derek's analytical approach to diversity and inclusion issues, but she was more interested in programmatic modifications that could enhance educational effectiveness for underrepresented participants. The Foundation's mission required demonstrable impact rather than superficial demographic improvements. Sarah's recommending that we develop preparatory programming for scholarship recipients who need additional support before entering regular Academy curriculum, Elena continued, reading detailed recommendations about educational scaffolding and mentorship enhancement. Derek made notes about implementation logistics for preparatory programming, considering instructor recruitment, facility requirements, and integration with existing Academy operations. The Foundation's research was identifying opportunities for educational innovation that could benefit all participants, while specifically addressing equity concerns. Victoria knocked on Elena's office door with updates about the afternoon's instructor interviews. The candidates represented diverse professional backgrounds, from former corporate executives seeking career changes to successful Academy graduates who wanted to share their expertise with new entrepreneurs. The first candidate is Maria Santos, who graduated from our pilot program 18 months ago and has since expanded her textile business to include wholesale contracts with major retailers, Victoria reported,
reviewing candidate portfolios. She wants to develop curriculum specifically focused on scaling production while maintaining quality standards. Elena felt particularly interested in candidates who could contribute specialized expertise based on their own business development experiences. Academy instruction was most effective when it combined theoretical frameworks with practical insights from instructors who had successfully navigated similar challenges. What about the corporate candidates? Derek asked, reviewing resumes and professional backgrounds for applicants with traditional business credentials. Victoria consulted her notes about the remaining interviews. We have candidates from management consulting, investment banking, and corporate strategy roles. All of them express interest in transitioning toward more meaningful work that directly impacts individual entrepreneurs. Elena had learned to be cautious about candidates whose primary motivation was escape from corporate careers rather than genuine commitment to Academy participants' success. Effective instruction required understanding and empathy for creative entrepreneurs' specific challenges rather than simply applying generic business principles. The interview process revealed important insights about Academy culture and educational philosophy. Candidates who demonstrated curiosity about participants' unique perspectives typically proved more effective than those who assumed expertise based on traditional credentials. Maria Santos impressed Elena immediately with her thoughtful questions about curriculum development and participant support services. Her own experience transitioning from craft hobbyist to wholesale supplier provided authentic credibility that resonated with Academy participants who faced similar scaling challenges. I remember feeling overwhelmed by production requirements when I first received large orders, Maria explained during her interview. The Academy taught me systematic approaches to capacity planning and quality control, but I had to learn through trial and error how to implement those concepts in my specific industry. Elena appreciated Maria's recognition that general business principles required adaptation for different creative industries. Academy instruction was most valuable when it helped participants develop problem-solving capabilities rather than memorizing standardized solutions. How would you help Academy participants identify their unique scaling challenges? Derek asked, testing Maria's ability to translate personal experience into educational programming. Maria's response demonstrated sophisticated understanding of adult learning principles and industry-specific business development. I would start by having participants map their current production processes, identify bottlenecks and quality control points, then develop customized improvement strategies based on their specific products and target markets. Elena noted Maria's emphasis on customization rather than standardization, which aligned with Academy philosophy about respecting individual entrepreneurs' unique circumstances and goals. Effective business education enhanced participants' decision-making capabilities rather than prescribing uniform approaches. The corporate candidates presented different teaching challenges, combining strong analytical skills with limited understanding of creative industry dynamics. Elena was interested in candidates who demonstrated willingness to learn from Academy participants rather than simply dispensing expertise based on previous professional experience. Jonathan Kim, a former management consultant, impressed Elena with his questions about participant feedback mechanisms and curriculum adaptation processes. His consulting background had taught him to analyze client-specific challenges rather than applying generic solutions, which translated well to Academy instruction. I've learned that effective consulting requires understanding each client's unique context before proposing solutions, Jonathan explained. I imagine Academy instruction works similarly, helping participants develop strategies that fit their specific circumstances rather than implementing universal business models. Elena appreciated Jonathan's recognition that Academy participants were collaborators in their own education rather than passive recipients of instructor expertise. The most successful Academy graduates were those who learned to adapt general principles to their particular challenges and opportunities. Derek asked follow-up questions about curriculum development and participant assessment, testing candidates' ability to design educational experiences that balanced structure with flexibility. Academy programming needed to provide comprehensive business education while accommodating diverse learning styles and industry requirements. By the end of the interview process, Elena had identified clear preferences for instructor candidates who combined business expertise with genuine curiosity about creative entrepreneurship. The Academy's educational effectiveness depended on instructors who could facilitate learning rather than simply delivering information. Maria Santos and Jonathan Kim emerged as the strongest candidates,
representing complementary approaches to business education that could enhance academy programming. Maria brought authentic creative industry experience, while Jonathan offered analytical frameworks that could help participants develop systematic business thinking. I think we should offer positions to both Maria and Jonathan, Elena decided, as they reviewed interview assessments. Their different backgrounds could create productive collaboration that benefits academy participants. Derek agreed, noting that instructor diversity typically enhanced educational quality by providing participants with multiple perspectives on business development challenges. Academy graduates consistently reported that exposure to different teaching styles and professional backgrounds had accelerated their learning. Victoria confirmed that both candidates were available to begin instructor training immediately, which would prepare them for the next academy enrollment cycle beginning in 2 months. Instructor development required intensive preparation about academy philosophy, curriculum design, and participant support services. As evening approached, Elena remained in her office to review foundation research and academy operational data, looking for insights that could inform strategic planning for the following year. The organization's rapid growth required constant evaluation of educational effectiveness and mission alignment. Derek stopped by her office before departing for the day, carrying the partnership development proposals he'd been preparing during their flight from California.
His role had evolved to include identifying collaboration opportunities that could enhance academy capabilities while maintaining program quality and values alignment. Elena, I've been thinking about the foundation research regarding preparatory programming, Derek said, settling into a visitor chair with the comfortable familiarity that had replaced his former presumptuous approach to her time and attention. Elena looked up from financial projections and enrollment analytics, interested in Derek's perspective on educational equity initiatives. What aspects of the preparatory programming seem most important to you? Derek consulted his notes about demographic analysis and participant outcome variations. The research suggests that many potential academy participants need confidence building and basic business literacy before they're ready for regular curriculum. Maybe we should partner with community organizations that already work with underrepresented entrepreneurs. Elena appreciated Derek's understanding that educational equity required addressing systemic barriers rather than simply offering scholarships to existing programming. Effective preparation would help participants succeed in academy curriculum while building relationships with community organizations that shared similar missions. That's a thoughtful approach, Elena confirmed. The Foundation's mission is most effective when it creates pathways to opportunity rather than just reducing financial barriers to existing programs. Derek had learned to think systemically about business development challenges, recognizing that individual success was enhanced by strong community support networks. His partnership recommendations consistently emphasized collaboration with organizations that shared academy values about entrepreneurship and economic development. I've identified several community development corporations and women's business centers that might be interested in collaborative programming, Derek continued, sharing contact information and preliminary partnership frameworks he'd researched. Elena reviewed Derek's partnership suggestions with appreciation for his thorough analysis of potential collaborators' missions and capabilities. These organizations look promising, Elena agreed. Let's schedule exploratory meetings to discuss how preparatory programming could benefit their existing participants while creating pathways to academy enrollment. Derek made notes about partnership development timeline and coordination with foundation research initiatives. His project management skills had proved valuable for implementing complex collaborative programs that required careful coordination among multiple organizations. As Derek prepared to leave, Elena reflected on how dramatically their professional relationship had evolved since the holiday party where he'd publicly dismissed her business capabilities. His current contributions to academy development demonstrated sophisticated understanding of educational mission and values-driven business strategy. Derek, thank you for your thoughtful work on the partnership development, Elena said, acknowledging his professional growth while maintaining appropriate boundaries about their changed relationship dynamics. Derek paused at the door, looking back with the respectful appreciation that had replaced his former competitive tension. Elena, working on academy development has taught me that meaningful business success
requires understanding complex relationships between individual achievement and community development. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to something genuinely important. After Derek departed, Elena remained at her desk to complete the strategic planning analysis she'd been working on throughout the afternoon. The Academy's success had created opportunities for significant expansion, but sustainable growth required careful attention to educational quality and mission alignment. The Foundation research had identified specific improvements that could enhance Academy effectiveness while creating more equitable access to business development programming. Elena felt optimistic about implementing preparatory programming that would remove barriers for underrepresented entrepreneurs while strengthening overall Academy community. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Victoria. Media response to Stanford presentation continues growing. Harvard Business School has requested Academy case study development for their entrepreneurship curriculum. Elena smiled at the institutional recognition, but her satisfaction came primarily from Academy participants' business development success rather than academic validation. The program's ultimate effectiveness was measured by sustainable creative enterprises rather than educational industry awards. As she gathered materials to take home for evening review, Elena paused to look out over the city skyline, where Academy graduates were building businesses that contributed to local economic development. The view from her executive office encompassed multiple neighborhoods where creative entrepreneurs were implementing Academy curriculum in diverse industry contexts. 3 years earlier, Derek had stood in the same office expressing shock that his craft-making wife owned the building where he worked. Now the building housed educational programming that was influencing business development practices across multiple states, with international expansion planned for the following year. The transformation validated Elena's conviction that authentic business success required building systems that enhanced everyone's capabilities rather than concentrating advantages in single organizations. The Academy embodied her philosophy about commerce as a force for community empowerment rather than individual enrichment at others' expense. 6 months later, Elena stood before the United Nations Economic and Social Council in New York, delivering a presentation about sustainable entrepreneurship education to an audience of international development professionals. The Academy's success had attracted attention from global organizations interested in replicating their model in emerging economies. Creative entrepreneurship represents one of the most promising pathways for economic development in communities that lack traditional business infrastructure, Elena explained, displaying charts that showed Academy graduates' impact on local employment and economic activity. The UN audience included representatives from development banks, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations who were evaluating educational strategies for promoting small business development in diverse cultural contexts. Elena's presentation focused on adaptation principles rather than prescriptive programming that might not translate across different economic environments. The key insight from our experience is that effective business education must be embedded in local communities rather than imposed by external organizations, Elena continued. Academy participants succeed because they're learning alongside peers who understand their specific challenges and market conditions. Dr. Amara Okafor, representing the African Development Bank, raised her hand to ask about curriculum adaptation for different cultural contexts. Ms. Sullivan, how do you ensure that business education remains relevant when expanding into communities with different economic structures and cultural values? Elena had anticipated this question during her preparation for the UN presentation. International expansion required careful attention to cultural sensitivity and local economic conditions rather than simply translating existing curriculum materials. We've learned that business principles are universal, but their application must be adapted to local contexts, Elena explained. Our approach is to partner with established local organizations that understand community needs, then collaborate on curriculum development that integrates Academy frameworks with local knowledge and practices. The Academy's international pilot programs had demonstrated that effective adaptation required genuine partnership with local educators and business leaders rather than top-down curriculum implementation. Successful programs combined Academy methodology with local expertise about market conditions, cultural values, and regulatory environments. For example, Elena continued, our pilot program in rural Mexico partnered with a cooperative development organization that had been supporting artisan businesses for decades. They understood local production techniques and market relationships, while we contributed frameworks for business planning and growth strategy. The Mexican pilot had exceeded all expectations, with participants reporting average revenue increases of 400% within 18 months of program completion.
More importantly, graduates had created regional networks that continued providing mutual support and collaborative opportunities long after formal education ended. Dr. Okafor followed up with questions about financial sustainability for international programming. How do you ensure that academy programs remain financially viable while serving communities with limited resources for educational investment? Elena's response reflected months of careful consideration about sustainable international expansion strategies. We've developed a sliding scale tuition structure combined with local sponsorship opportunities that make academy education accessible while generating sufficient revenue for program operations. The financial model incorporated partnerships with local businesses, government agencies, and international development organizations that shared academy mission about creative entrepreneurship and economic development. Diverse funding sources provided stability while ensuring program accessibility for participants regardless of their individual financial circumstances. We've also found that academy graduates often become sponsors for future cohorts, creating self-sustaining communities of entrepreneurs who support each other's continued business development, Elena added. The most successful international programs are those that generate ongoing local ownership rather than dependence on external funding. A representative from the European Union raised questions about integration with existing business development programming in member countries. Ms. Sullivan, how does academy curriculum complement rather than compete with established small business support systems? Elena appreciated the question because it reflected understanding that sustainable business education required collaboration with existing institutions rather than displacement of local resources. Academy International Expansion consistently emphasized partnership approaches that strengthened communities rather than creating dependency relationships. The Academy works best when it's integrated into existing business support ecosystems, Elena explained. We provide specialized curriculum and methodology, while local partners contribute market knowledge, regulatory expertise, and ongoing support services. The presentation concluded with Elena outlining Academy expansion plans for the following 3 years, including partnerships in 12 countries across 4 continents. Each international program would be developed through collaborative relationships with local organizations that shared Academy values about entrepreneurship and community development. Derek met Elena in the UN building lobby, carrying materials from their afternoon meetings with potential international partners. His role had expanded to include global partnership development, requiring travel to prospective Academy locations for feasibility assessment and relationship building. The response from development organizations has been extremely positive, Derek reported as they walked toward their hotel. 3 countries have submitted formal proposals for Academy partnerships, and the World Bank wants to discuss incorporating Academy methodology into their small business development programming. Elena felt gratified by institutional interest, but she remained focused on ensuring that international expansion maintained Academy educational quality and values alignment. Rapid growth could compromise program effectiveness if sufficient attention wasn't paid to cultural adaptation and local partnership development. Did you have productive conversations about local partnership requirements? Elena asked, reviewing meeting notes and contact information Derek had collected during their networking sessions. Derek consulted his tablet for partnership assessment criteria and preliminary collaboration frameworks he discussed with potential international partners. Most organizations understand that Academy success depends on genuine community embedding rather than external program implementation. They're proposing co-development approaches that integrate Academy methodology with their existing community relationships. Elena appreciated Derek's sophisticated understanding of international partnership requirements. His professional development had included learning about cultural sensitivity and collaborative program development that respected local expertise while contributing Academy educational innovation. Their hotel room provided space for strategic planning about international expansion priorities and implementation timelines. Elena wanted to ensure that Academy growth enhanced rather than overwhelmed their domestic programming, which continued serving increasing numbers of creative entrepreneurs across the United States. Derek, I've been thinking about sustainability requirements for international programming, Elena said, reviewing financial projections and operational complexity assessments they'd prepared before traveling to New York. Derek opened his laptop to display partnership development schedules and resource allocation scenarios he'd been analyzing. The preliminary assessments suggest that we should limit international expansion to 3 new countries per year, with intensive partnership development periods before formal program launch. Elena agreed with Derek's cautious approach to international growth. Academy effectiveness depended on careful attention to educational quality and community integration rather than rapid geographic expansion that might compromise program outcomes. I think we should prioritize partnerships with organizations that have demonstrated long-term commitment to entrepreneurship development, Elena decided. Quick wins are less important than sustainable relationships that can support Academy programming for decades. Derek made notes about partnership selection criteria and due diligence processes that would ensure international collaborators shared Academy values about business education and community development. Effective partnerships required alignment of mission and operational philosophy rather than simply shared interest in entrepreneurship programming. Elena's phone buzzed with messages from Victoria Chen, who was coordinating Academy operations while Elena traveled for international development meetings. Daily operational management had become increasingly complex as enrollment expanded and curriculum diversified to serve different industries and experience levels. Victoria says domestic enrollment applications for next year have exceeded capacity by 200%, Elena reported, reading updates about program demand and expansion planning. We may need to accelerate plans for additional locations to serve growing applicant interest. Derek reviewed domestic expansion timelines on his tablet, considering coordination requirements between international partnership development and domestic program growth. Academy success had created opportunity for rapid expansion in multiple directions simultaneously. Maybe we should focus international development in regions where we can partner with organizations that want to send participants to domestic Academy locations for intensive training, Derek suggested. That could provide international exposure while maintaining program quality standards. Elena appreciated Derek's creative thinking about expansion strategies that could serve international development goals while preserving Academy educational effectiveness. Complex growth challenges often required innovative solutions that balanced multiple competing priorities. As they prepared for their evening flight back to California, Elena reflected on how dramatically Academy mission had expanded since her original vision of helping creative entrepreneurs develop sustainable businesses. International recognition and partnership opportunities were validating, but program success was ultimately measured by individual participants' achievements rather than institutional recognition. Derek gathered presentation materials and partnership development documentation while Elena finalized her notes from the UN meetings. Their collaborative efficiency in managing complex travel schedules and multiple simultaneous projects had become one of the most satisfying aspects of their professional relationship. Elena, participating in these international development conversations has taught me that business education can be a powerful tool for social change when it's designed thoughtfully, Derek observed as they headed toward the airport. Elena nodded agreement while reviewing the day's partnership proposals and collaboration opportunities. Derek, the Academy's international expansion will only succeed if we maintain focus on individual participants' goals rather than institutional growth metrics.
Derek's understanding of mission-driven business development had evolved significantly since his advertising career, when success was measured primarily through revenue growth and market share expansion. Academy work had taught him to evaluate initiatives based on social impact and long-term sustainability rather than short-term financial returns. Their flight provided uninterrupted time for planning Academy's international expansion strategy, balancing ambitious partnership opportunities with realistic assessment of organizational capacity and resource requirements. Elena wanted to ensure that growth enhanced rather than compromised their core educational mission. Back in California, Victoria met them at the airport with updates about Academy operations and domestic expansion planning. The organization's complexity required constant coordination among educational programming, business development, and administrative management teams. The Denver Academy's first graduation ceremony exceeded all expectations, Victoria reported as they drove toward Academy headquarters. 93% of participants reported significant business growth during their enrollment period, and 87% plan to continue Academy alumni programming. Elena felt deeply satisfied by graduation outcome data that demonstrated Academy effectiveness in achieving its core educational mission. Participant success was the ultimate validation of their innovative approach to business education for creative entrepreneurs. What feedback did graduates provide about curriculum improvements? Elena asked, reviewing assessment surveys and program evaluation reports that had been completed during their absence. Victoria consulted participant feedback summaries on her tablet. The most common suggestion was for additional programming about scaling production while maintaining quality standards. Graduates want more industry-specific guidance about growth management. Elena noted the feedback about industry specialization, recognizing an opportunity to develop advanced academy programming that could serve graduates who wanted to continue their business education while serving as mentors for new participants. Derek reviewed domestic partnership development opportunities that had emerged during their international travel. Several major corporations had expressed interest in academy programming for employee creative development and innovation training initiatives. Corporate partnerships could provide significant revenue while introducing academy methodology to audiences who might not otherwise consider creative entrepreneurship, Derek suggested, showing Elena preliminary partnership proposals and collaboration frameworks. Elena felt cautious about corporate partnerships that might compromise academy values about community development and individual empowerment. Business education effectiveness depended on serving participants' authentic goals rather than institutional marketing objectives. Let's schedule exploratory meetings to understand how corporate partnerships could align with Academy mission, Elena decided. I want to ensure that any collaboration enhances our educational effectiveness rather than diluting program focus. Derek made notes about corporate partnership assessment criteria and values alignment requirements that would guide evaluation of potential collaboration opportunities. Academy expansion needed to strengthen rather than compromise their core commitment to creative entrepreneur development. As they reached Academy headquarters, Elena noticed the bustling activity in the maker marketplace, where Academy graduates were demonstrating production techniques while selling their products to an unsteady stream of visitors. The integration of education and economic opportunity had become one of the Academy's most successful innovations. Victoria pointed toward the exhibition space, where current Academy participants were working on collaborative projects that combined individual business development with community building initiatives. The Pure Learning programming has become one of our most popular offerings. Participants consistently report that collaboration with classmates enhances their individual business development. Elena felt gratified that Academy programming was fostering the kind of collaborative entrepreneurship that had driven her own business success. Sustainable creative businesses typically benefited from strong peer networks rather than purely competitive market relationships. In her executive office, Elena found waiting materials from the Elena Martinez Foundation's research team, who had completed their comprehensive study of Academy long-term impact on graduate business development and community economic growth. The data would inform strategic planning about program enhancement and expansion priorities. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's research report revealed that Academy graduates had created over 25,000 jobs in their local communities within 3 years of program completion, with total economic impact exceeding $1 billion annually. The multiplier effects validated Elena's conviction that business education could be a powerful catalyst for regional economic development. The research shows that Academy graduates are significantly more likely than comparable entrepreneurs to hire employees, purchase supplies locally, and participate in community development initiatives. Elena observed, reviewing statistical analyses that demonstrated Academy's broader social impact. Derek studied the economic impact data with appreciation for its implications about sustainable business development and community investment. This research could be valuable for securing government partnerships and foundation funding that supports Academy expansion. Elena appreciated Derek's strategic thinking about leveraging research findings for organizational development, but she remained primarily interested in program improvements that could enhance individual participant outcomes rather than institutional recognition. Sarah's recommending that we develop advanced academy programming for graduates who want to continue their business education while transitioning into mentorship roles, Elena continued, reading detailed suggestions about curriculum enhancement and alumni engagement strategies. Derek reviewed implementation logistics for advanced academy programming, considering instructor recruitment, facility requirements, and integration with existing educational operations. Academy growth required careful attention to organizational capacity and quality maintenance rather than simply adding new programming components. Victoria knocked on Elena's office door with updates about the afternoon's corporate partnership meetings that Derek had scheduled before their international travel. The meetings would test Academy's willingness to collaborate with large organizations while maintaining program values and educational effectiveness. The first meeting is with Nordstrom's innovation team, Victoria reported, reviewing corporate partnership proposals and collaboration frameworks that potential partners had submitted. They're interested in Academy programming for employee creative development and supplier diversity initiatives. Elena felt cautiously optimistic about corporate partnerships that could expand Academy reach while serving mission-aligned goals. Effective collaborations required careful assessment of values alignment and program design that benefited all participants rather than simply generating revenue for Academy operations. What specific programming are they proposing? Derek asked, reviewing corporate partnership assessments and collaboration requirements he discussed during preliminary conversations. Victoria consulted detailed partnership proposals and program specifications that corporate representatives had prepared. They want Academy methodology for employee entrepreneurship training, plus collaboration with Academy graduates who could become suppliers for their artisan product lines. Elena appreciated the partnership structure that could create economic opportunities for Academy graduates, while introducing Academy methodology to corporate employees who might not otherwise consider creative entrepreneurship. Successful collaboration required mutual benefit rather than one-sided service relationships. That sounds like genuine partnership rather than corporate training services, Elena confirmed. Let's explore how Academy programming could serve their employee development while creating supplier opportunities for our graduates. Derek made notes about partnership development priorities and collaboration frameworks that could guide corporate Academy programming without compromising educational values or participant outcomes. Effective partnerships enhanced rather than diluted Academy mission about creative entrepreneur development. As they reached Academy headquarters, Elena noticed the bustling activity in the maker marketplace, where Academy graduates were demonstrating production techniques while selling their products to an unsteady stream of visitors. The integration of education and economic opportunity had become one of the Academy's most successful innovations. Victoria pointed toward the exhibition space where current Academy participants were working on collaborative projects that combined individual business development with community-building initiatives. The Pure Learning programming has become one of our most popular offerings. Participants consistently report that collaboration with classmates enhances their individual business development. Elena felt gratified that Academy programming was fostering the kind of collaborative entrepreneurship that had driven her own business success. Sustainable creative businesses typically benefited from strong peer networks rather than purely competitive market relationships. In her executive office, Elena found waiting materials from the Elena Martinez Foundation's research team, who had completed their comprehensive study of Academy long-term impact on graduate business development and community economic growth. The data would inform strategic planning about program enhancement and expansion priorities. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's research report revealed that Academy graduates had created over 25,000 jobs in their local communities within 3 years of program completion, with total economic impact exceeding $1 billion annually. The multiplier effects validated Elena's conviction that business education could be a powerful catalyst for regional economic development. The research shows that Academy graduates are significantly more likely than comparable entrepreneurs to hire employees, purchase supplies locally, and participate in community development initiatives, Elena observed, reviewing statistical analyses that demonstrated Academy's broader social impact. Derek studied the economic impact data with appreciation for its implications about sustainable business development and community investment. This research could be valuable for securing government partnerships and foundation funding that supports Academy expansion. Elena appreciated Derek's strategic thinking about leveraging research findings for organizational development, but she remained primarily interested in program improvements that could enhance individual participant outcomes rather than institutional recognition. Sarah's recommending that we develop advanced Academy programming for graduates who want to continue their business education while transitioning into mentorship roles, Elena continued, reading detailed suggestions about curriculum enhancement and alumni engagement strategies. Derek reviewed implementation logistics for advanced Academy programming, considering instructor recruitment, facility requirements, and integration. The corporate partnership meetings revealed significant interest in Academy methodology among organizations that recognized creativity and innovation as competitive advantages in rapidly changing market environments. Several companies wanted Academy programming for employee development rather than traditional corporate training approaches. The most promising partnerships are with companies that understand creativity as a business skill rather than just an artistic hobby, Elena observed after completing the afternoon's collaboration discussions. Derek agreed, noting that corporate partners who appreciated Academy educational philosophy were more likely to support programming that achieved meaningful outcomes for participants rather than superficial innovation theater that looked impressive but generated limited actual impact. As evening approached, Elena remained in her office to review Academy's strategic planning materials and foundation research findings that would inform organizational development priorities for the following year. The Academy's success had created opportunities for significant expansion, but sustainable growth required careful attention to mission alignment and educational effectiveness. Derek stopped by Elena's office before departing for the day, carrying partnership development materials and implementation timelines for domestic expansion initiatives. His role had evolved to include complex project management that balanced multiple competing priorities while maintaining Academy values and operational quality. Elena, working on Academy international expansion, has taught me that educational innovation can be a powerful force for social change when it's designed thoughtfully, Derek reflected, settling into a visitor chair with the comfortable familiarity that had replaced his former presumptuous approach to her time and space. Elena looked up from strategic planning documents and financial projections, appreciating Derek's recognition of Academy's broader social impact beyond individual business development outcomes. Derek, the Academy succeeds because it treats education as community development rather than individual advancement at others' expense. Derek had learned to think systemically about business development challenges, recognizing that sustainable success required strong community support networks rather than purely competitive individual achievement. His partnership recommendations consistently emphasized collaboration that created value for multiple stakeholders simultaneously. I've been thinking about Academy legacy and long-term impact, Derek continued, sharing observations about educational innovation and social change that had emerged from their international development conversations. Elena appreciated Derek's philosophical engagement with Academy mission, but she remained focused on operational improvements that could enhance educational effectiveness for current and future participants rather than abstract institutional legacy concerns. The most important legacy will be Academy graduates who build sustainable creative businesses while contributing to their community's economic development, Elena replied. Everything else is secondary to that core educational mission. Derek nodded agreement, recognizing Elena's consistent priority for individual participant outcomes over institutional recognition or organizational growth metrics. Academy success was ultimately measured by sustainable creative enterprises rather than educational industry awards or media attention. As Derek prepared to leave, Elena reflected on how dramatically their professional relationship had evolved since that holiday party where he'd publicly dismissed her business capabilities. His current contributions to Academy development demonstrated sophisticated understanding of mission-driven business strategy and values-aligned organizational growth. Derek, thank you for your thoughtful work on international partnership development, Elena acknowledged. Academy expansion benefits from your strategic thinking about collaboration and community engagement. Derek paused at the door, looking back with the respectful appreciation that had replaced his former competitive tension and patronizing confidence. Elena, Academy work has taught me that meaningful business success requires understanding complex relationships between individual achievement and community development. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to something genuinely transformative. After Derek departed, Elena remained at her desk to complete the strategic planning analysis she'd been developing throughout the day. Academy success had created opportunities for significant expansion across multiple dimensions simultaneously, requiring careful prioritization and resource allocation to maintain educational quality and mission alignment. The foundation research had identified specific improvements that could enhance Academy effectiveness while creating more equitable access to business development programming. Elena felt optimistic about implementing advanced Academy programming that could serve graduate development needs while providing mentorship opportunities that strengthened overall Academy community. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Victoria. International partnership responses continue arriving. 5 additional countries have submitted collaboration proposals, and UNESCO wants to discuss Academy methodology for their entrepreneurship education initiatives. Elena smiled at the institutional recognition, but her satisfaction came primarily from Academy participants' business development success, rather than organizational prestige. The program's ultimate effectiveness was measured by sustainable creative enterprises and community economic development, rather than educational industry validation. As she gathered materials to take home for evening review, Elena paused to look out over the city skyline where Academy graduates were building businesses that contributed to local economic development while preserving creative authenticity and community engagement. The view from her executive office encompassed multiple neighborhoods where creative entrepreneurs were implementing Academy curriculum in diverse industry contexts. 4 years earlier, Derek had stood in this same office expressing shock that his craft-making wife owned the building where he worked and had built a global enterprise from her supposedly simple hobby. Now the building houses educational programming that was influencing business development practices across multiple continents, with Academy methodology being studied by international development organizations. The transformation validated Elena's conviction that authentic business success required building systems that enhance everyone's capabilities rather than concentrating advantages in single organizations. The Academy embodied her philosophy about commerce as a force for community empowerment and individual creativity rather than wealth extraction that diminished others' opportunities. Elena smiled as she thought about the woman who had been dismissed as someone playing entrepreneur, whose business insights had been characterized as cute hobby thinking inappropriate for serious corporate consideration. That same woman was now designing educational programs that are being implemented by the United Nations and studied by Harvard Business School as examples of innovative social enterprise. The evening sun cast golden light across Academy headquarters, illuminating the spaces where creative entrepreneurs were developing sustainable businesses while learning collaborative approaches to professional development that enhanced rather than compromised their artistic authenticity and community engagement. Sometimes the most meaningful revenge wasn't proving others wrong about your capabilities, but building something so compelling that even former skeptics wanted to contribute to its continued success. Elena had created an educational movement that transformed how thousands of creative entrepreneurs approached business development, while demonstrating that commercial success and social impact were synergistic rather than competing priorities. The Academy's international expansion would continue spreading Elena's business philosophy about collaboration, community development, and authentic value creation to new regions where creative entrepreneurs need educational resources designed specifically for their unique challenges and opportunities. As Elena prepared to leave her office, she reflected that the most satisfying aspect of Academy success wasn't the institutional recognition or financial returns, but the knowledge that creative entrepreneurs around the world were building sustainable businesses while contributing to their community's economic development and cultural vitality. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.